Whispers of the Ancients, West Asia, Southwest Asia, Middle East. Episode 1, Sumerians c. 4500 to 1900 BCE, Mesopotamia, Iraq. Before the pyramids touched the skies of Egypt, before the Vedas echoed through the Indian plains, there was Sumer, a land not just of kings and cities but of memory itself. In the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates, humanity carved its first true footprints into time. Here, in this cradle of civilization, clay tablets whispered the earliest stories, temples scraped the heavens, laws were born, gods were bargained with, and from the mud of rivers, a new kind of world emerged. This is the story of the Sumerians, keepers of firsts, builders of cities, and authors of humanity's oldest dreams. 1. The land between rivers. They called it Uruk, the land of the noble lords. We call it Sumer, nestled in the southern reaches of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. A place so fertile, so unpredictably rich, that it demanded human ingenuity to tame its floods, dig its canals and sow its seeds, long before cities rose. Communities here were already crafting irrigation systems, domesticating animals, and aligning their survival to the rhythm of stars and rivers. This was no ordinary land. It was a natural theatre for civilization's grand debut. 2. Invention of the city. If history has a birthplace, it might be Uruk. Rising from the marshes around 1000 BCE, Uruk became the first great city not just of Sumer, but of the world. Towering ziggurats and grand walls encased a living, breathing machine of trade, religion, and rule. Its population surged to tens of thousands, unthinkable in its day. Here was born urban life, permanent homes, division of labor, class, craft, temple, law. With mudbrick and vision, the Sumerians turned landscape into skyline. 3. The god-kings of clay. In Sumer, there were no pharaohs, but there were kings. Lugal, big man, but he ruled not by divine right alone. He was servant to the gods, and above him all stood Enlil, god of wind and fate, feared, unpredictable, supreme. Each city had its patron deity. Inanna reigned in Uruk, goddess of war and love. Enki presided over Eridu, god of wisdom and fresh water. Temples weren't just places of worship, they were administrative centers, economic engines, keepers of order. The ziggurat loomed like a cosmic ladder between worlds. To rule was to mediate between human and divine on clay tablets with blood oaths, with offerings that echoed into eternity. 4. Written in clay. The Sumerians gave the world its first script, cuneiform, wedge-shaped impressions on damp clay that outlived empires, etched by styluses wielded by scribes trained from childhood. Originally born to track grain, beer, taxes, writing soon expanded epics, hymns, contracts, medicine, astronomy. And then came the myth of Gilgamesh, part man, part god. All king who mourned his friend Enkidu and sought eternal life through him. We see them, a people already asking the questions we still do. What does it mean to live, to die, to be remembered? 5. The great ziggurats, rising like staircases to the heavens. Ziggurats dominated the skyline of Sumerian cities. These massive stepped temples, made of sun-baked brick, weren't places for public worship but homes for the gods. The most iconic, the ziggurat of Ur, dedicated to the moon god Nanna, still stands, its ruins scorched by millennia, yet defiantly majestic. Priests climbed its tiers, carrying offerings upward. Smoke from burnt incense and animal sacrifices curled into the sky, trying to bridge the divine divide. For the Sumerians, heaven wasn't far, it was a platform away. Enjoying the story of the first civilization? Like, subscribe, and comment below what ancient culture do you want us to uncover next. Your thoughts help shape our journey through time. 6. The sacred and the practical. To the Sumerians, religion and science weren't at odds, they were intertwined. When they observed the stars, it wasn't just for curiosity, it was to predict the will of the gods. They built calendars, predicted eclipses, and aligned temples with celestial bodies. But this wasn't just sky gazing, it was survival. Understanding the lunar cycle meant knowing when to plant and harvest. Their mathematical systems were sexagesimal base 60. That's right, the reason we measure time in 60 seconds and 60 minutes. It began here. 7. Life in the city. Sumerian cities buzzed with energy, blacksmiths forging tools, merchants bartering dates and fish, scribes tallying numbers in temple records. Women managed households and markets. Children played in courtyards. The poor lived in mud brick hovels. The wealthy in houses with courtyards and private chapels. Justice came from the temple. Disputes were settled with divine witnesses. Contracts were sealed with seals pressed into clay. And always in the backdrop the looming temple, the ever-present gods, and the belief that life was both gift and burden. 8. War and the rise of empire. City-states. Forta, Uruk, Lagash, Kish locked in endless struggle over canals, fields, and honor. They built walls, raised armies, and crowned kings who claimed divine favor. One of the earliest known military leaders was Eonatum of Lagash, who carved his conquest into stone on the stele of the vultures. War wasn't just bloodshed, it was cosmic. Victory meant divine blessing, and through conquest, kings dreamed of uniting all under one rule. But unity was fragile. Empire rose and empire fell. If you're intrigued by how civilization first rose from mud and faith, like this video, subscribe for more and drop a comment about which ancient legend you want us to explore next. Your voice brings the past to life. 9. The fall of Sumer. By 2000 BCE, the cities of Sumer began to fade. The reasons were many: salinized soil from irrigation, internal conflict, new powers rising to the north, the Akkadians, and later the Amorites. Nature had given Sumer its wealth, and nature reclaimed it. Sands crept in, rivers shifted, yet the memory endured. Even as Sumer disappeared, its legacy was passed to Babylon, Assyria, and beyond. Writing, law, kingship, urban life all born in Sumer echoed through time. 10. Sargon and the shadow of Akkad. Into the flickering twilight of Sumer came Sargon of Akkad, a Kabera-turned conqueror. He claimed the favor of Inanna, marched on city after city, and in time united all of Sumer under the banner of the Akkadian Empire. Though Sargon was not Sumerian by birth, he adopted their language, their deities, their administrative genius. Under him, the world saw its first true empire, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. But with unity came strained rebellions, invasions, droughts. When Akkad fell, Sumer briefly reasserted itself, but the old cities were tired. Their glory, though brilliant, was fading. 11. The kings of Ur, a final flowering. One last time Sumer rose. Anamu, king of Ur, forged the third dynasty of Ur around 2100 BC, a renaissance of culture, architecture, and law. Anamu authored the world's oldest surviving law code predating Hammurabi by centuries. The ziggurat of Ur was rebuilt on a monumental scale. Trade flourished, and cuneiform bloomed once again. But this golden dusk was brief. By 2000 for BCE, Elamite invaders breached its walls. The city was sacked, and with it, the Sumerians vanished into memory. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. 12. Legacy in stone and word. Sumer fell, but Sumer endured. Babylonians would revere their culture. Assyrians would preserve their language. Even millennia later, their inventions, the wheel, the plow, writing, law, temple-state structure would echo across continents. Cuneiform script would be adapted into Akkadian, then Elamite, Hittite, and even Old Persian. Their stories, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, would inspire myths from Genesis to Homer. They were the first to ask, what lies beyond death, to write it down, to build for eternity. 13. Rediscovered by clay and time. For over 2,000 years, the Sumerians were forgotten, buried under desert sands and shifting tongues. Even their name was lost to time. But in the 19th century CE, European archaeologists and local excavators began to uncover tablets, temples, ziggurats, and statues. The cities of Ur, Lagash, Nippur, and Eridu emerged from the dust. With the deciphering of cuneiform came the voice of Sumer, quiet at first, then resounding. Their clay archives began to speak again, telling of gods and kings, contracts and recipes, eclipses and dreams. 14. Humanity's first historians. The Sumerians didn't just live history, they recorded it. Lists of kings, chronicles of floods, tales of divine wrath. and royal propaganda were etched with care. Their king list, though mythical in parts, tried to trace lineage back to the time before the flood. They believed time was cyclical, civilizations rose and fell by the will of gods. But in writing it down, they challenged that very cycle. They defied oblivion. 15. The first dreamers. In the end, the story of the Sumerians is not just about kings or wars. It is about beginnings. They were the first dreamers who turned earth into cities, the first writers who pressed thought into clay, the first believers who built stairways for the gods, and the first to wonder, what does it mean to be human? We owe them more than we can name. So, when you write, when you build, when you look up at the stars and wonder why, know that you echo summer, and the ancients still whisper. 16. The spiritual world of summer. The Sumerian cosmos was a vast and layered reality. Shimmering with unseen forces, they believed the universe was born from Namu, the primordial sea, from her Cayman sky and Ki earth, whose union birthed gods and destinies. The divine realm wasn't distant, it pulsed through their daily lives. Illness was the work of demons. Dreams were messages. Stars told stories. Death, however, was not hopeful. The dead went to Ker, a gloomy underworld beneath the earth. There they lived as shadows, clothed in dust, fed on clay. Even kings and priests could not escape this fate. And so, the Sumerians built to endure, to leave something above, even as all returned below. 17. Art of clay, metal and myth. Sumerian art was not just beautiful, it was deliberate, layered with meaning. Eyes were wide in their statues, eternal witnesses. Bearded votives knelt in worship, frozen in clay but alive in intent. Cylinder seals were rolled across tablets and doors miniature. Masterpieces bearing the signatures of gods and men. They crafted with copper, lapis lazuli, gold and shell. Musicians played harps shaped like balls. Jewelry glinted in tunes. Every artifact a whisper from the past, asking not to be forgotten. Art was not for art's sake. It was sacred, civic and eternal. 18. Women of summer. In this ancient world, women were not silent. Sumerian women owned property, ran businesses, were priestesses and scribes. The world's first named author was a woman in Heduanna, daughter of Sargon of Akkad. She was high priestess of the moon god Nana, and her hymns still resonate, praising Inanna with voice and fire. Through her verses, we glimpse a personal soul languished, defiant, radiant. She wrote of exile, of cosmic battles, of longing and devotion. In Heduanna wasn't just a poet, she was a star, a symbol of what it meant to be human in a world of gods. 19. Time's first architects. The Sumerians measured time in ways. We still use dividing the hour into 60 minutes, the circle into 360 degrees. They charted stars, named constellations and tracked Venus with astonishing accuracy. Calendars were lunar, but aligned to seasons with intercalary months, eclipses, omens. Tides, they recorded it all, believing the cosmos to be a divine script. They didn't just build cities, they built frameworks for reality, time, space, writing, governance, also that those who came after would not start from silence but from wisdom. 20. The whisper that became a roar. Now, the winds of the Iraqi plains rustle over buried walls and shatter tablets. Ziggurats stand like sleeping giants, their bricks crumbling but proud. Yet the Sumerians are not gone. They live in every law code, every written word, every tower that scrapes the sky. They live in US because we are the inheritors of their dream. When humanity chose to settle, to speak, to record, to build, summer was the first heartbeat. And from that rhythm came history, closing reflection. So let us remember them not as relics, not as ruins, but as beginnings. They were not perfect. They warred, they fell, they feared, but that they also wrote, they loved, they asked why, and in doing so, they became timeless. This was the story of summer, where whispers became words and words became civilization. Thank you for watching Whispers of the Ancients. If you've been moved by this journey into the earliest pages of history, please like this video, subscribe for more immersive tales of ancient civilizations. Share your thoughts in the comments. Who should we explore next? Your voice keeps history alive.